here you really have to work together, and the fact that you have to discard cards to generate those fate points, that requires some serious discussion amongst the group.
It does, without going into the real detail of what you can do.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the cards are all useful in different ways, some more powerful than others, but the discussion that's required to do that is fantastic.
I know, and it is. I like that part that it is like solving little mini puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And we played the first book, Stormfront, many times.
Yep.
And it was different every time.
Yep. The puzzle was always different.
The puzzle was always different because the cards come out differently.
That's very true. So the way the cards come out in the rows will basically increase the replayability tremendously. You can play the same story over and over. And then one of the other stretch goals that's happened is they're going to create a list of achievements. And the other part of that being that you could always play with less fate points.
Right.
So I think the advanced rule says you start with 4 fate points and see what you can do with that. Right. So there's a real replayability. You might, be able to go, okay, I know that we can beat this one. That's fine. We figured this one out. We know how we can beat this several different ways. But let's try to ramp up the difficulty and see if we can really... It's almost like shooting for high scores in a video game, which is kind of cool. And co-ops lend themselves to a achievement unlocked tree like that, which is kind of nice.
That's true.
So we talked briefly about the player decks. I want to get back to those a little bit.
Okay.
I thought... you know more about the Dresden-Files than I do. But I thought, from my limited knowledge, that each of the decks played very differently. They had different things they were trying to do and ways in which they dealt damage or solved clues. And I especially like the stunt that each character has, like a once per game they can do this powerful thing. As far as theme goes, how do you think the character decks are tied in?
They are. I don't know how they managed to tie in the characters the way they did. But if you know the characters and you're looking at them and you're looking at their special ability, they so match how you know the character from the books and how they interact with Harry and how they interact in the story and what their personality quirks are, that it's mind-blowing. I was so very happy with that because I would look at it and go, oh, this makes perfect sense because in this book he does this and in this book she does this, and it makes perfect sense that should be a character and a trait. Right.
Like the first time I played with Michael, I had no idea who Michael was.
Right, you didn't.
But the thought was like, wow, this guy hits for a lot of damage, but he has conditions on how he can hit, but when he hits really hard. Well, apparently in the book he turned into a bear or some nonsense.
Well, no, he doesn't turn into...
Is that his spirit bear?
It's a spirit bear.
All right, thank you. Well, see, one of us has to...
But, yeah, it's like knowing the character. Once you know the character and you look at it's like, it makes sense.
Okay, there you go. I thought, like again, with my limited knowledge, Susan and Karen and Harry were all very representative.
Because you haven't gotten to Susan Rodriguez yet, have you?
No, only a little bit.
Okay.
No, and that's one of the things, hashtag spoiler alert, that has been unlocked with the campaign is that there are some alternate cards for Susan because Susan is going to have a lifestyle change.
Right.
Now, she's not switching teams. She's switching species.
Right.
And there's also going to be some cards for Harry as well to swap out a couple for him, which is nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so those are some Kickstarter bonuses that are going to be included in the game, which will allow you to add a little bit more variety as well. Plus, the expansions that they unlocked are going to provide a bunch more characters.
Yes.
Including the last stretch goal, which was Mouse.
It was Mouse.
So you have a playable deck, and so now if you wanted, you can be a like a Buddhist temple dog or whatever he is.
It made me so happy when I saw that. I love that dog. It's such a great character.
What I think is good about this is that you and I are coming from different places on this. You're coming from this as a super fan. I'm coming from someone who's probably less than casual of a fan. But we get different things out of this.
Yeah.
So I get a game that I really like. You get a game you really like that really feels like the theme to you.
Right.
So very fortunately, we're illustrating the two types of people that might be buying this.
That's true.
And so this is a game, a non-gamer will be able to play with other gamers because it's easy to play. non-Dresden fans will be able to play it with Dresden fans. And I think playing this gave me more interest in reading more.
Right.
So I think this will be one of those cool scenarios where the game will drive people to the books, and the books will then drive people back to the game. And you're sort of expanding the world.
I think so too, because if you're playing this game and you have not read the books, but you like the theme of it and you like the characters, you will be interested in reading the books. If you haven't read them before, you will want to read it after you play the game.
So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay.
Okay.
We mentioned the 2 rows of cards, and essentially what you're going to be doing is, on your turn, you're going to be playing a card. Either you're going to discard something for fate, and when you do that, each character has a unique ability. It's their talent that triggers whenever they discard for fate. And that is going to give you some bonuses, like you can do damage to cards, or you can put clues on cards.
Right.
Essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be manipulating these rows of cards. And you're going to be doing it so that you can get clues on the cases and, again, damage on the foes, and maybe take the advantages that are out there, which will give you a boost or let someone draw cards, or various and sundry effects. And it's based on book to book. And what you're trying to do is, before you run out of fate points, essentially, or everyone passes, you're trying to solve more cases than there's going to be foes left on the board.
Right.
In the easiest way I can describe this, I think, is that you're basically collecting the cases, and they're going to be positive points, and foes left on the board at the end will be negative points. So as long as you finish with a positive score, you win, essentially.
Right.
That sounds easy, except for, and this is where the order of these rows really matter.
It does.
Things will happen, and sometimes you will be forced to make suboptimal plays because it's what you can do at the time. And that's where you're going to have to manage your hand very tightly.
Yes.
And I would say this game has a cool feature that we've come to twice, I think, out of the 10 times we've played, which is the showdown at the end.
Yeah.
When both players pass, or if, and I'll talk about the fate system in a second, if you tried to play a card and it ended up costing you more fate points than was available in the pool, the showdown's triggered. Essentially, at the showdown, what happens is any cases or foes that are left on the board, you're going to have a chance to encounter them and defeat them using random dice rolls that can be influenced by available fate points left. And any of these that you solve or defeat will count towards your score. So we had it happen the one game where we went on a Hail Mary to try to win.
Barely. We squeaked by.
And we squeaked by. And I thought that was so cool because it was very Harry. It was very like, he gets out of this situation just by the skin of his teeth. And it kind of felt that same way. We're like, if we can just get lucky and solve this case, we'll win.
Right.
But we've also had ones that we lost, where we tried and we just came up short.
Yep.
And at first I was like, it feels like a cheesy mechanic. Like, the whole game could come down to a random flip of the roll of the dice or flip of the coin. And my initial thought was that I didn't like it until the first time it happened. And then I said to myself, yep, that's a winner, because it'll create that scenario where you either win or lose in dramatic fashion, and it'll stick with you. Right. It won't be... I don't think any win in this game will ever be a landslide. They've always been fairly close. We have not
seen that. No. All of our games have been very, very tight.
So the game is tight. And the fact that you can pull out a miracle at the end and win a game that did not look like you were going to be able to win, I actually think that's really cool. It's fun. It'll keep people coming back. It makes it a lot of fun. Yes. It makes it so that you never quite know. You could think you have things under control, too, and just the dice do not go your way.
Or the cards that you ended up drawing just did not have the ability to solve the puzzles you have on the deck. So
this game uses a very cool randomizer in that it uses fate dice. Most folks are familiar, non-gamers, and even a lot of gamers don't know about fate, but these are 6-sided dice. I'm going to call them a D6 for my Dungeons and Dragons friends. And instead of having a 1 through 6 on it, it has 2 negatives, 2 blanks, which are neutrals, and then 2 positives. So some of the cards in here will say, for the fate cost, it'll show like a 2 and then a 3 in a little circle. That's telling you to roll 3 fate dice. And based on what symbols come up on the fate dice, your fate points may either be increased or decreased. So it creates just enough randomization. And you would think about it, the odds are, your odds of rolling the pluses and minuses and the neutrals are the same. So if you're rolling 4 dice, theoretically, your best result is a nothing. But the fact that it could go as high as 4 positive or as low as 4 negative creates just enough doubt in your mind that you're like, ooh, you know, it works that the average number. I think it just manipulates it just enough to either side. And it's interesting. People that don't play a lot of games will think the system's cool because these will be new dice. They'll be like, what, these are just plus and minuses.
Right.
Yeah, but it's clever. It's really clever. And the Fate system is what Evil Hat's known for.
Yeah.
Their Dresden-Files role-playing game is based in that system.
Okay.
So I love that. I really do. And the other thing that we loved about this game is that this game takes basically exactly half an hour to play.
That's true.
And that is wonderful, especially if you have people that are not gamers, people that are new to the hobby. Or if you are gamers, you can play a couple sessions in a row.
Right.
And that half an hour, though, feels packed with meaning. There's no, like from the first card you play here, there's no squandered moments where you're waiting for something to ramp up. This game just presents you the situation, and the situation's already not great.
And you also have this wonderful interaction with your other players.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of game where you're sitting around just waiting for your turn.
Right.
Trying to figure out what you're going to do. Is you're engaged at every turn.
Yep. Everyone's invested all the time.
All the time.
So we could talk about this one forever, and in case people can't tell, we love it.
Yeah.
How many bobs out of 10 do you rate this?
This kind of blew it out of the water for me. I was kind of scared and excited and everything in between when I heard that this game was coming out, because you never know. And I love the characters in the book so much that I anticipate. I know when the next book comes out, and I will get it on an audiobook, and I will also get a hardcover book, and that's just the way it's going to be. So
#nerd.
And because the audiobooks are really great. James Masterson does a fantastic job of reading Harry. So if you haven't listened to the audiobooks, you really need to. Even though you've read the books, you should.
Stop shilling things we don't get any money for.
Anyway, no, this is a perfect 10 for me.
Really?
Yeah, it is.
A perfect 10.
Yeah.
I will go with 9.
Okay.
I'll nitpick. I would have loved a Dresden-Files adventure game, like Arkham Horror and the Dresden-Files universe. That's the only nitpick I have. But I think they did a phenomenal job marrying the theme into how the game plays. A lot more than I expected. Like I had no idea. I had no idea what we were getting. I didn't read the rules or anything before they sent us a copy. I had no idea. And I was blown away at how smooth this is. Like, this is a very well developed game. There's no bumps. This bad boy is just clean, and it just works. Like, this is a wonderful game design that manages to have a good game engine and yet still require massive amounts of player interaction to be successful.
Yes.
And to me, that's really good. This is probably, I think it's my favorite co-op now. Pandemic: The Cure was probably in that spot before. I think this one might be above that, because this will be much easier to play with other people. Just less iconography and smoother system. And I think people that are slightly, even remotely interested in a interesting theme like this, they'll dig it. Yeah. So I think the bottom line is, if you like games as a gamer, this is not a heavy game. I'd say this skews towards the lighter side. Yeah, but there's a lot of player interaction. If you are not a gamer and you're a Dresden-Files fan, then this has... Don't worry about not being able to learn a quote-unquote gamer's game. Right. Because this thing is designed for you as well. And if you're someone that just has, like, you see this on the shelf and you have a passing interest, like, oh, that looks cool, I wonder what this is, this could totally turn your life around and get you into hobby gaming. Just incredibly well done.
Yes.
I'm thrilled that we got a chance to do this, because this is a game that people should buy, and they're killing it on the